And welcome. Today we're jumping into one of the oldest and, let's be honest, most brilliant games ever created, chess. Whether you've never touched a piece in your life or you just need a quick brush up, this is your complete guide to the rules.
Okay, so at the very heart of it all is this, the chessboard, a 64-square battlefield just waiting for a game. And believe it or not, in the next few minutes, you're going to learn everything you need to know to set it up, command your pieces, and play to win.
So first things first, right? You've got to prepare the field of battle. Let's walk through how to get this board set up perfectly before you even think about making a move.
The board itself is pretty simple. It's just an 8x8 grid with 64 squares that alternate between light and dark. But here is the most important rule of all, the one that kicks everything off. White always moves first. That single rule shapes the entire game.
Now, before you even put a single piece down, you have to get the board oriented correctly. And there's a super easy trick for this. Just remember white on right. All that means is that each player needs to have a light-colored square in their bottom right corner. It's a tiny detail, but it makes sure the whole setup is correct.
All right, let's get the pieces on the board. We're going to start with your first line of defense. Think of it as a wall of pawns. All 8 of them go right along your second row, which in chess we call a rank. They make a nice little barrier for all your important pieces behind them.
Next up are the big pieces on the back rank. Your rooks, the ones that look like little castles, they take control of the 4 corners of the board. And then the knights, you just place them right inside the rooks.
After the knights, you've got your bishops. They just slide right into the spots next to the knights. You can see how we're kind of filling in that back line, getting closer to the center.
Okay, now for a really crucial rule, especially for the most powerful piece on the board. Remember this, the queen always goes on her own color. So the white queen starts on the central light square and the black queen starts on the central dark square. Easy peasy.
And finally, the king. He is, without a doubt, the most important piece in this whole game. He just takes that last empty square on the back rank right next to his queen. And just like that, you're all set up. The board is ready for battle.
So the board's set. Now for the really fun part, learning how your army actually moves. Each piece has its own special way of getting around the battlefield. So let's break them down.
Let's kick things off with the rook. The easiest way to think about it is like a laser beam. It just shoots in a straight line, as far as it wants, as long as the squares are empty. It can go horizontally or vertically, which makes it awesome for controlling those long, open files and ranks on the board.
Now the bishop is similar, but it glides diagonally across the board, again for as many open squares as it wants. The really important thing to remember here is that a bishop is stuck on the color it starts on. So you'll have one bishop that only ever moves on the light squares and another that only ever moves on the dark squares.
And now, meet the queen. She is by far the most dominant piece in the entire game. And her power is basically a combination of the rook and the bishop. She can move in any straight line she wants, horizontally, vertically, or diagonally. For as many squares as she wants, she's a total powerhouse.
So, while the queen is the most powerful, the king is the most important. His survival is literally the entire point of the game. His movement, though, it's pretty limited. He can only move one single square at a time, but he can go in any direction.
All right, let's talk about the trickiest piece on the board, the knight. It moves in this really unique L shape. That's 2 squares in one direction and then 1 square over to the side. But what really makes the knight special is that it's the only piece on the entire board that can jump over other pieces, whether they're your own or the enemy's.
Okay, now we need to dedicate some time to the heart and soul of your chess army, the pawn. I know it seems like the most basic piece, but trust me, its rules are actually the most complex and unique in the whole game.
So here's the deal with pawns. Normally, they just plod forward 1 square at a time. But on their very first move, they get the option to jump forward 2 squares instead. And here's the really weird part. Pawns do not capture the same way they move. They can only capture an opponent's piece by moving 1 square diagonally forward.
All right, so beyond all the normal moves, chess has 3 special moves that kind of bend the rules. If you can master these, you'll really start to level up your game.
First up, we've got castling. This is a fantastic defensive move that does 2 things at once. It gets your king to a safer spot in the corner, and it brings your powerful rook out into the action. The king moves 2 squares towards a rook, and then that rook just hops right over to the other side. It's the only time in chess you can move 2 pieces in one turn. But there's a catch. You can only do it if neither the king nor that specific rook has moved yet in the game.
Next is pawn promotion. This is awesome. If one of your little pawns makes that epic journey all the way across the board to the other side, it gets a massive reward. You have to immediately trade it in for a better piece, a queen, rook, bishop, or knight. Now, for obvious reasons, almost everyone chooses to get a brand new queen.
Definition: a special pawn capture. If an enemy pawn uses its 2-square first move to land beside your pawn, you can capture it diagonally on your next turn only. And finally, we have what is probably the trickiest rule in all of chess: en passant. It's French for in passing. So here's how this works. Let's say your opponent moves a pawn 2 squares forward on its first move, and it lands right beside one of your pawns. You get a one-time only chance on your very next turn to capture that pawn diagonally, just as if it had only moved 1 square. It's weird, I know, but that's the rule.
So you know the setup. You know how all the pieces move. But how do you actually win? Let's get to the whole point of the game. The goal, the entire objective, is to win by delivering what's called a checkmate. This is when you attack the opponent's king, putting it in check, and they have absolutely no legal way to get out of it. Game over, you win. But you have to be careful not to end up in a stalemate. That's a special kind of draw or tie that happens when a player's king is not being attacked, but they have no legal moves they can make anywhere on the board.
And there you have it. You now know all the fundamental rules you need to play a full game of chess. The board is set, the army is ready, and we know that white always moves first. So the only question left is, what's your first move going to be?
Hey everyone!